long until we reach Nova Atar, Ensign?
About 23 hours, Captain.
22 hours, 53 minutes, and 17 seconds to be precise.
Spock, there's no need to be precise. We're going on shore leave. Rest, relaxation, no calls from Starfleet.
Captain, we have a message coming in from Admiral Richards at Starfleet.
On screen, Lieutenant.
Hello, Jim. I know you're going on shore leave, but...
What is it, Chris?
Well, since you're going there anyway, and it's only a small favor...
Favor?
I don't want to inconvenience you, but...
Fine, you have it. What would you like me to do?
We recently discovered that one of the exhibits in the Smithsonian Annex at Nova Atar is of great historical significance to the Serenzi, an influential family from planet Lakian. The museum is going to have a small ceremony to return the item. The Federation planned to send a representative, but, well, she couldn't make it. Since you'll be in the neighborhood, well, no dress uniforms. All you have to do is smile and shake hands.
Smile, shake hands. It would be my pleasure, Admiral. My chief engineer had already promised to show me around. We'll be there.
Thanks, Jim. I owe you one. Check your data files for details. Oh, one more thing, Jim. Due to the security concerns, you won't be allowed to bring any electronic equipment with you. Richards out.
Now, I was saying...
Captain, do we really have to stand around and listen to speeches from a bunch of politicians?
It won't be all bad, Scotty. The curator's a major cognac producer, and he asked us to show up early to thank us for our support.
Captain, it'd be rude to keep a man like the curator waiting, what with an important diplomatic function to prepare for.
It would be rude, but we need to check our data files.
Nova Atar, a Federation system whose third planet, Nova Atar 3, is the home of the Smithsonian Annex for this sector of the galaxy. Nova Atar is renowned for its rich collection of artifacts. Lakian. Governed by large extended families, the inhabitants of this world escaped a dying planet several generations ago to relocate to Lakian. After a troubled period of re-establishment of their culture and industrial base, the Lakians recently petitioned for admittance into the Federation. Serenzi, a large influential extended family among several controlling Lakian. Cross-reference entry, Lakian.
All sensors are clear, Captain.
No word from Nova Atar, Captain.
We've arrived at Nova Atar, Captain.
Bring us into standard orbit, Mr. Sewell.
Aye, Captain.
We are at Nova Atar.
Okay.
Curator Brezhnev bids you to beam down at your pleasure.
There's no time like the present.
Mr. Scott, Mr. Chekhov, come with me. Mr. Spock, you have the comm.
Captain Kirk, good to meet you. I am Boris Brezhnev, curator of the museum. Everyone is buzzing about visitors from the Enterprise. A real feather in my cap.
The pleasure is ours, sir. This is my chief engineer, Mr. Scott, and Ensign Chekhov, our navigator.
Most pleased to meet you both. Chekhov, a fine name. I'm certain you will be interested in sampling the Kazakhstani cognac, distilled and blended by my family. In fact, I will later show you my most prized possession, a bottle of our finest vintage, aged 40 years from our very first pressing.
But isn't cognac French?
Originally, Mr. Scott. But before my ancestors came to settle this planet, they went to Cognac and purchased cuttings, brought them here, and made enhancements. You could say we reinvented Cognac. I do not wish to be rude, but you gentlemen are a bit early, and I must see to making certain the cleaning crews are finished working. Please, feel free to look about a bit. I will page you later, and maybe you will join me in a small toast before the ceremonies? Yes?
It would be our pleasure, curator.
I told you we invented it.
Maybe we were a little hard on you, laddie.
Never doubted you for a second, Mr. Chekhov. Now let's take advantage of this time and look around.
We entered. But the gentleman could say bent. Never mind.
A typical computer-controlled door. The Klingon console looks operational, but without a ship attached, it's hard to tell. Written on the plaque, this is a control console from a Klingon warbird, the Klarg, which was salvaged from the battle wreckage near Crimmins 8.
Think you could make that work, Mr. Scott?
Of course, Captain. But it's not like I'll ever have to.
The plaque reads, an old ground-based phaser cannon model B-17, the real equalizer, rescued from a Federation scrapyard, probably based on the frontier near Nelapur. This phaser cannon no longer possesses any of its focusing or targeting equipment. The large capacitors in the base allowed a variety of power sources to be used to energize the cannon and gave the real equalizer considerable flexibility in use. Lights cascade continually above the surface of this device. Plaques on each side read, the Vandecourt Aurora generator was donated to this museum by Sir William Loudon. Originally, a university experiment designed to test broadcast power as both a containment system and photostimulation for possible use in a propulsion system, the unit was presented as a gift to Loudon, who liked the way it looked and had recently donated a significant sum to the university. The plaque reads, the Niven, non-integrated Vulcan electronumerator, was one of the earliest versions of a Vulcan computer. Some of the components were found to only function correctly at high temperatures. Since the focus in those early days was on computational effectiveness and not user-friendliness, the operator could not stand near the Niven during its operation. Input to the machine was cabled in from a separate device, hence it was a non-integrated computer.
And we're still mixing up the away teams. I believe this is Scotty's first time with us. And it's nice to have Chekhov back as well.
Scotty thinks this is the best shore leave he's ever had. Chekhov is pleased to finally be with someone from his ancestral culture. Kirk seems to be enjoying the leisurely stroll around the museum.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the more relaxing missions.
You know, this is a fine place, Captain. We'll have to come here for shore leave more often.
Maybe they'll display a piece of the Enterprise here someday, Captain.
Maybe they will, Mr. Chekhov.
They'd better not. Taking a piece out of that grand lady would be like cutting the head from the statue of the Antares Maiden and putting that on display.
Interesting analogy, Mr. Scott. But you have to admit that someday even the Enterprise will be put into dry dock.
He will not.
I think we'll agree with Mr. Scott on this one, don't you think, Mr. Chekhov?
Yes, Captain.
I imagine this is how you decorate your home, Mr. Scott.
Aye, Captain. But I'd leave all the parts in. Most of this has been gutted.
I've never seen one of these up close before.
A beauty, isn't it, Captain?
I'll take your word for it, Mr. Scott. I suppose this is interesting, but tampering with equipment will set off alarms. We hardly want trouble on our shore leave. I suppose this is interesting, but
Okay. We can look, but we can't touch.
Kirk realizes this is probably heaven to Scotty, but this isn't his favorite type of history. Chekhov thinks this is interesting, but that he's too young to be spending his shore leave in a stuffy old museum. Scotty is quite pleased that the captain enjoys this as much as he does. The plaque on the old machine reads, an early experimental transporter. The Murnane 8 was from a time before transporters were safe for travel by living beings. Constructed to be a frequently modified testbed, the Murnane 8 had only a small loading bay. The destination controls were also still in testing, making the use of this transporter as much art as science. The plaque reads, one of the most widely used and most stable designs ever. The Umber Hubble Mark 84 has been used in far more ships than any other model.
Captain Kirk, I trained on one of these. It's solid as a rock and twice as dependable.
Remind me after the ceremony. I'll talk to the curator about letting you look this one over.
Thank you, Captain. I'd dearly love to put it through its paces.
This EVA suit was worn by Ivan Petrovsky, a late 21st century Terran astronaut during the famous Commonwealth mission. Petrovsky used this suit to dock with the damaged spacecraft SS Commonwealth and saved the vessel from certain destruction in orbit around Mars.
Petrovsky. Isn't that a Russian name?
I don't think so, Mr. Chekhov.
I sincerely doubt it, laddie.
Really? I would have sworn it was Russian.
An old communications panel. On the plaque, this communications station was removed off the old freighter, Big Bear Running, when that ship was retired from its customary Benchley to Sawcare run. Outdated by today's standards, this system was known for its powerful transmitter and ease of repair. As a side note, the shell of the Big Bear Running was used as a testing target for present models of photon torpedoes.
I hope the ceremony doesn't last too long. I'm starting to get hungry.
I'm sure it won't be much longer, Mr. Chekhov. There are some impressive items in this museum.
Aye, they went to a lot of trouble to find some of these beauties. Not that I'm ever planning to leave the Enterprise, but a man could do worse than spend his retirement here. A lot worse.
I don't know, Scotty. I don't think I can really imagine you wanting to spend your days tinkering with antiques.
Perhaps you're right, but these things do have their charm.
So now we've discovered 2 rooms out of what looks like 10. This definitely should be a very relaxing time here. Surely nothing will go wrong. Oh, we have an 11th room now.
We're just guards, sir. We don't know anything. We wouldn't mind you.
What? What are you meant to be telling the truth about?
This case contains an astronomical model of the Lockean system. This case contains a model of an ancient Lockean temple in honor of the guests. A very old space probe rests on a pedestal in the roped-off area. It shows considerable wear.
That probe looks like it's seen better days.
Captain Kirk and party, please report to the curator's office, please. Captain Kirk and party, please report to the curator's office.
I hope you enjoyed your tour, gentlemen. Please join me. Would you mind if the first toast with the Kazakhstanian was to the Enterprise?
Curator, why isn't that Brezhnev cognac?
For heaven's sakes, Chekhov, don't interrupt a man on the verge of toasting the best ship in the fleet with the finest cognac on this side of the galaxy.
My apologies.
Questions later, then. The toast. Here's to the Starship Enterprise. What could this be?
A conspiracy, if you ask me, Captain.
Let me pull this up on screen. They've destroyed my camera. Well, let's see how they deal with our other security systems.
Oh dear. Are you okay there? It's nice to know that his main concern is the cameras, and not the people who are, like, they're getting rather abused at the moment.
A solid-looking door with no handles. An enormous bottle of cognac. The plaque below reads, "This Jeroboam of Kazakhstanian cognac is from the first blending and 40-year aging on Nova Atar." An old suit of armor, but with a strong framework added inside to avoid any accidents. It's holding a large metal lance in its right gauntlet. This glass birdhouse is the nesting place of a Brechnerian swallow. Ignoring the slight ozone odor, the curator looks peacefully asleep.
Ozone odor?
a monitoring and control station for museum security. This is the screen where the curator monitors the rest of the museum. The curator's desk, neat, organized. A small conference table and chairs. A nearly full decanter of cognac. A small, tantalizing goblet of cognac waiting for the warm touch of Mr. Scott's hand to gently release its vapors.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't be drinking right now.
Finely crafted silver serving tray.
This is not quite the shore leave I expected, Captain.
I do not know what we should do next, Captain. Maybe I can wring some information out of that security panel.
Look around, gentlemen. Let's see if we can find something to solve this little mystery.
You get no response.
I wish Bones were here. He's out, but I can't tell you how bad it is.
We learned as children playing chess, it's never a good idea to randomly move your knight about.
The large lance shows somewhere.
There's something disturbing about a bird in a cage.
I feel rather bad about this, Captain.
I do too, Scotty, but it's always surprising what you need in an emergency.
Large amounts of alcohol. Oh, hello.
The note on the paper reads, Bresnia, VVSOP 2123.
I wonder what this is for.
No effect. The decanter is nearly full. This is a very expensive silver tray.
Captain, I don't know what we could possibly use these for.
Usually drinking.
Simple trap, simple to disarm. Whoever did this must have figured the curator would not be expecting it. This is helpful. There's a button under the edge of the desk when the curator wants to open the door.
Easy peasy.
Captain, what will we do when we get to the other room and the door closes?
Not much, but I'm guessing we should block the door somehow.
Mr. Chekhov, see if you can wedge that knight under the door.
Yes, Captain.
There, that should hold the door open.
The suit of armor is firmly wedged under the door.
I believe we are done here. There's not much we can do for the curator.
We're still 2 rooms away from our problem. Let's get closer and see what we can find out.
I wish we could reach the Enterprise, Captain.
That would certainly be of some help, Mr. Scott.
Who would do such a thing as this, Captain?
We don't know until we find them, Mr. Chekhov.
While we don't have Scott in our party, we do have Scotty, and he is an engineer.
I've looked this beastie over, and the only things we might be able to use are the capacitors. I've taken them out. They'll soak up a wee bit of power before releasing it. There's little else we can do with this, Captain. Well, it's not like anyone's likely to be using this monstrosity soon, so I pulled out the only things we might be able to use. It's not much, only some heat-resistant wiring and a cable. This machine is putting out a fair amount of power.
I believe that these capacitors don't actually have any power at the moment?
An old-style phaser cannon capacitor. It is currently uncharged.
There we go.
The capacitor should charge very quickly. The capacitor should charge very quickly.
It's working fine. Just doesn't have anything to control right now.
An old-style phaser cannon capacitor. It is currently uncharged.
It says they should charge pretty quickly. How quick is this?
Chekhov takes the capacitor off of the Aurora generator. Chekhov takes the capacitor off of the Aurora generator.
That wasn't too bad.
Security lockdown is in effect. Please enter access code. Security lock deactivated.
Oh, more stuff to look at.
This was a sensor diagram from the Remembrance, an early Terran interstellar craft. Low and sleek, this space vehicle has a Spartan look, written on the plaque. This is the escape pod in which the famous smuggler known as the Black McKiernan was captured. Unable to outrun his pursuers, McKiernan tried to escape in the pod as he blew up his ship, hoping the authorities would think he had perished. The pod had been specially constructed of expensive metalloceramic alloys to withstand such an escape tactic. Unfortunately for McKiernan, the pursuit included a trailing scout ship looking for a backtracking maneuver, and when the smiling smuggler opened the hatch thinking he'd made planetfall, he was treated to the inside view of a Federation cruiser's shuttle bay. The surface of the old docking ring is pitted from micrometeorite strikes, and there are several large welds running completely around it. Many magnetic coupling clamps are uniformly spaced around the ring. The plaque reads, "This docking ring was recovered in pieces from the port facilities at Genevieve 9, where it was broken when a freighter, the Hardy, accidentally turned on its thrusters just before mooring was completed." The plaque reads, "A failed experiment in Habis robotics. The Green Mark 6 was one of those ideas where the original concept might have been sound, but the follow-ups were too much. Planned as a simple cargo handler, attempts were made at increasing its function and therefore its flexibility. Unfortunately, proposed missions such as security were well beyond its recognition systems and processors. One small piece of lasting notoriety was that the Mark 6 was one of the first Habis robotic uses of room temperature superconducting wiring. While the wiring concept went forward, little else of this robot did."
I don't think the schematics show the way to the other room through here. Is there something you know that we don't, Captain?
Well, there's something that I know.
I don't see anything here that can help us, Captain.
No shortcuts here, it seems. We better get moving.
No, there's things we can do.
Most of this is just too massive to move around, but we've got some nice magnetic clamps here. This is a bizarre piece of machinery. I wonder what it was designed for. Everything on this pod's too tight. I need the proper tools. I was able to get one loose access panel, but I'm not sure what we can do with it.
That has to be one of the most useless robots I've ever seen.
Badly designed, Captain.
It's not going to help us, is it?
Only in a dance contest, Mr. Chekhov.
Did seem to rock out a little bit too hard.
You take the capacitor out of the robot. The plaque reads, a failed...
Okay, I thought it might have changed the description after we blew it up.
There's not a worthwhile circuit in its head, Captain. But the wirings may be helpful at some point.
Now we're done here.